Hello, everyone. Welcome to No Buying Cash Machine. It's a pleasure to finally meet everybody and get a chance to share some more information with you. And what I wanted to do is take a moment to answer George Fry's question from the group. And he wanted to know, let me check, just make sure I got it right. He wanted to know, what's the easiest way to determine how much a note is worth? He said, I know certain states are worth certain percentages. Okay, so I want to address that question today. And what I want to do is I want to give you a very long answer, and then I'm going to give you a very, very short answer. If I gave you the short answer first, you might feel unfulfilled. So I want to give you the long answer first. So what I did is I took the time and opportunity to just kind of throw together a keynote presentation to give you an idea of what I look at when I'm evaluating a note and deciding how am I going to pay for the note. So let's see what I got for you. And technology is always a funny thing. So, all right, let's look at this keynote presentation. Just give me a second here. Okay, so this is the Note Buying Academy, and let's see what the delay is, delay time. All right, so these are tools and tips that I use for my due diligence and how I determine value of a property, as well as when I'm looking to purchase a note. So the first thing that I look at is the value of the property. Most people try to evaluate the note, but in the instance where at the end of the day, if there's a foreclosure involved, I'm going to be left holding the property. So the first thing that I look at is what I'm going to be left holding at the end of the day. I want to know what type of change is in my hand once the deal is done. So I use a number of free tools to get a general idea of property value, and this just gives me an introduction to what I'm looking at when I'm dealing with a bank or a note seller. So in doing the evaluation, I see hundreds of notes each and every day. So if I paid $400 or $500 to examine 20 or 30 properties each and every time, and then I called the bank to make an offer and someone had already outbid me, I would be out of this business very quickly. You wouldn't last long with a business model like that. So my overview of how I evaluate properties quickly, the first tool that I use is Bing.com. So I have the address, I put it in Bing, I get a view of the property, street view, bird's eye view, I check for chemical plants, railroad tracks, and any other hazard that may devalue the property. So I get an overall view of the community. Next, I'll use Google to check for a picture of the front door. So I get an aerial view of the neighborhood from Bing, and I'll use Google to check the front door. Look at the street views more closely and things like that. I'll spin my little Google avatar around to check the house across the street to see if that's torn down or dilapidated as well, because no one is going to want to purchase the property if they have to walk out their front door and look at a garbage dump. So once I have a good idea that the property is standing and I have verified the address, I like to check the value. And it's important to verify the address of the property and that it matches the address that the bank has for the note, because sometimes they get them mixed up. So Zillow is a good site that'll give me a baseline of the values of the property in the area. So I just hit Zillow real quick, put the address in, and see what number Zillow is going to give me. Now I know that Zillow, their numbers are going to be way off. So if Zillow is saying that the property value is 120, then I know in reality the property, the actual value might be somewhere around 70. But I like to just check Zillow and see what they're saying. I'll use Trulia.com to get a conservative value on the property. Sometimes Trulia will give you numbers way too low. And I try to come in between the two of them to get an idea of what numbers we're looking at. So again, I'm doing this in I'm doing the Bing, the Google, the Zillow, and the Trulia all within about 60 seconds. And what I do is, once the bank sends me the note tape, I will highlight the address in the note tape, and I'll have my Bing, Google, Zillow, and Trulia tabs already up on my screen, and I'll just copy and paste that link in each one, and that'll give me a really quick view of the entire the content of the information that I'm trying to find. So I'm talking about 60 seconds. I'll use photos to get an idea of the condition of the property. If the concrete is cracked up, if the driveway is torn up, if the windows are boarded up, I look to see what other properties in the area might be boarded up. I just get an idea of the overall condition of the property. Realtor.com is also good at placing values on property. So I'll check Realtor to see what types of information they have as well. Now, if you have MLS or a good relationship with a realtor, comps are the best way to get a value on a property as well. So what happens is the banks sometimes they will put up their BPO or say that they have a BPO. Now what the banks will do is the banks may hire a company like Inside Valuations, and what they'll do is they'll tell Inside Valuations to go and evaluate these 500 properties. They want BPOs on 500 properties. Of course, the agents can't get inside to view the properties. They're going to do a BPO from the street. So what happens is the bank will say to the BPO company, take it that all of these properties are in good condition on the inside. And the agent then will get that information and go and base their values on what that the inside of the property is in good condition, and that may not be true. So they don't always base the values correctly. Let me just leave it at that. So I'll have a realtor perform comps. I have relationships with hundreds of realtors. They'll provide me with comps a lot of times at the drop of a dime, and I just need to know, is the property standing? Give me a roundabout price for the property, and we can go from there. So I always try to use multiple sources, and I don't just rely on just one source. What I tend to do with each site that I'm getting information from, I will keep a small I'll keep a small file of information on the notes that I'm interested in. So what I may do is I may go to Evernote and open up a note and I'll title that note 123 Main Street. And then when I go to Bing and I get an aerial view of the property, I'll right click, highlight that photo, and drag it over into Evernote. And then when I go to Google and get a picture of the front door, then I will put that information in Evernote. And then as I begin to get values from Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, I'll put all that information in Evernote. So for each deal that I'm seriously considering, I'll build a small file of information. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my database and I'll start looking for realtors or people that can help me in the area, and I'll start just building this database. Now, all of this takes about 3 to 4 minutes because I'm working really fast because I need to be the first one to present an offer to the bank. So you have paid tools. Once you've really narrowed down the choices of notes that you're interested in, you can use some paid tools. And ordering a BPO is a really good way to determine value, especially when you call an agent up and you say, I would like a BPO. I don't know what the inside of the property looks like, but I want a value on it. Can you do a drive-by and give me, a BPO? And everybody always asks, well, why would a realtor just do a BPO for you for no money? Well, most of the time, I will tell that realtor, I will PayPal you whatever fee you need, and I don't have a problem PayPaling you first. But if you want to be the agent on the deal, how about you go and look at the property and we can go from there. We can talk about payment later. That goes into some other strategies that we can talk about later. So it's pretty necessary to use these tools when you determine your value, because the sellers will most likely be using them as well. So your seller may know what the Zillow is or the Realtor.com is, and at least don't lie. Don't ever say, well, Realtor.com has it for $50,000 when Realtor.com has it for $70,000, because the seller may already know. They may already have used these same exact sites. All right, so the asset manager for the bank is using all of the same tools that you have, and the asset manager may say to you, take a screenshot of your values and send it to me. And if you can't do it, then they don't want to deal with you any longer. One final option would be to use what we call automated valuation models. And AVMs are services like Zillow, Trulia, etc. But you actually have to hire a company to go pull the data for you in a nice report. AVMs work well when you're working with a pool of notes. Give me 1 second, guys. Hold on just a second. Let me check something here. Okay, so I hope you guys can see this here. Because of technology, you guys may not have been able to see this that I've been rambling on about. So is you guys see? So give me 1 second. All right. I hope your whole screen is covered and you don't see on the outsides. Okay, so all right, great. So one final option would be to use AVMs to value your notes, and you can hire a company to do it, and sometimes the company may be willing to evaluate 10, 20, 50, or 100 of the AVMs at once. And it really works well when you can do this, because the company will evaluate them and have the data back to you in minutes. And this is one of the ways that you can get a lot of notes evaluated. But some companies will charge you $10 per AVM. I've heard investors say that they have paid $4 per AVM, and sometimes I've had companies try to charge me $25 per AVM. So it just depends. So I have different people that I use for different deals and how fast I want to move. Yeah, so little as $4 or as high as $25. You have to be careful when you're spending money on notes that you're just bidding on, because these charges can increase very quickly. And here's a sample of a deal that I had an AVM pulled on. And you can see just some of what the estimated value is, and this is up in the upper left-hand corner, what they believe the confidence score is, and the value ranges, and other miscellaneous data. For me, what I like to see, looking up in the upper left-hand corner, is I like to see what the estimated value is. So that's the first thing that I look at. What are we talking about overall? So what is the value? In the end, now this is going into the short answer. In the end, the value is what it means to you and what you're willing to pay. So if you are only willing to pay $10,000, then it doesn't matter if the seller wants $250,000. That's not a deal that you're going to be able to afford. You have to just be willing to pay what you're willing to pay and leave it at that. So the photo on the right is an 8,000 square foot home with a 4-car garage, and a huge swimming pool in the rear. One thing about this particular deal is that the bank didn't even know that there was a huge swimming pool in the rear of the house. So they had their numbers, I had my numbers. But a BPO would be a real accurate way of getting the value. But just remember again that that's also someone's opinion. Again, what would you be willing to pay for a house like this? And this was actually in Florida. Looking at the value on this note, this was in Ohio. You know, this home was in a declining market. It was vacant. The interior was okay, but it was littered with beer bottles and trash and stuff like that. So the bank's value was 120, but my value was more like 58K. The bank supplied me with pictures of the inside, which was good because I got to see it from a different perspective than just evaluating it from the outside. So looking at it, my thought was the kitchen, the bathroom, the heating system needed to be upgraded, and then it would be valued at 120. But as is, with the old dirty carpet and the walls that needed to be painted and all the trash and outdated kitchen from the 1970s and all of that, yeah, it was only worth 58K. So this is a house in Baltimore City, and this house was on Old Frederick Road. The bank's value was 50K. Okay, let's take a look. Rochelle and I drove by this house to actually see it, which is something we don't normally do, but this was in an area that we were familiar with. So their own BPO report that they supplied me with said that the house was only worth 20K and it needed 50K in work. This is what their BPO said. So when they supplied me with their value was 50K. When I said to them, yeah, your BPO report says that the house is only worth 20K and it needs 50K in work, so already you're trying to sell me a deal that's upside down. Then mysteriously it disappeared from the market. So they didn't understand my bid until I showed them their own BPO. When we drove by it, the windows were boarded up. Some of them were uncovered. And the one thing that I noticed is that the utilities had been removed and sealed up. So how long had this property been vacant? When you looked in some of the windows, it looked like the house had been vacant 20 years. So again, what do you want to pay? It all depends. It all depends on how you value it. There's no hard, fast way, even when you are evaluating the property. If you say, based on all my numbers, based on what I think a contractor would be able to fix this house for, you still have to remember that you are buying a note. You are not buying the property. You're buying the note. And you have to decide what's your exit strategy. Are you using someone else's money to make the purchase? Because if you are, now you have the cost of capital to repay as well. And that has to factor into the deal. You have to look at the market that the house is in. Is it increasing or declining? Are they building in the area or tearing homes down? Is the house vacant or occupied? That determines your exit strategy as well as your holding costs. Again, in the end, you have to know that you're not really purchasing the house, but the note on the house. And you'll have other expenses that you need to consider. So when to answer George's question, when he said some states have percentages, in the note business, you have knowledge that people just spit out because it's something that they've read. And then you have knowledge that investors that actually buy and sell behind closed doors have. And I wouldn't care if a bank told me that a state's percentage is whatever, 50%. I wouldn't care. It doesn't matter to me what they say. In the end, I have the power. They don't have the power. I have the power. And the reason that I have the power is because I have the cash. So I bought notes and later thought that I paid too much. I also thought I paid too much and later realized I got a great deal. Again, ultimately, if you're the winning bidder, you were probably willing to pay more than anyone else was. You know, your exit strategy is going to be the key that is going to determine how you profit from a deal. And before you get into a deal, you should be looking at your exit strategy and determining thoroughly, once I'm in, how long do I have to be in? And when I get out, how much money am I going to be holding in my hand? So yeah, guys, that was just some thoughts that I had on George's question. I know that I took you the long route around, and you know, again, it's what you're willing to pay at the end of the day, and you have to just decide that, you know, this is the most that I'm going to pay, and that's it. There's really no hard fast rule, and the bank will sometimes take way less than what you are offering. So when I go into a deal, depending, I'm going in on average. Now notice I said depending, but I'm going in on average at about 25, 30 cents on the dollar. That's what I'm going at them with. And they can either accept it or reject it. Now, if it's a really nice place in a nice part of the country, I may offer more. That house in Florida, I offered the bank, I think it was 38 cents that I offered them. But you have to know the foreclosure laws and what you're getting into. In Florida, I may be holding a deal for 3 years waiting to foreclose. So, you know, I may do well, but, you know, it's in the end, it's all what you're willing to pay. So I know that was a long answer. I hope that that shed some light on you guys, what you guys are looking to get. Head on over to notebuyingcashmachine.com. I'm going to be uploading some more videos there on training and, you know, kind of getting you guys up to speed on this note industry. It's a great industry. We do deals constantly, and it's time for you to start making some money. To your success, and I hope to communicate with you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.